Hi, 7th grade. I hope that you enjoyed the folktale that you read yesterday. Today we're going to be continuing with folktales and we'll be reading a Vietnamese story. So this particular story's main character is really just a typical boy. However, there's something very unusual about him, and that is his appearance. And you'll see that as you're reading this story that people tend to judge this boy based on his appearance. And they miss really getting to know him and really getting to understand his special gifts and talents. So as I was thinking about that, I was it just reminded me how God has blessed all of us with very special and unique gifts and talents. And I found a verse that correlates with this story, and I wanted to read that to you. So it is 1 Peter 4:10. As each one has received a special gift, employ it in serving one another as good stewards of the manifold grace of God. So it's really important for us to identify our gifts and talents and then use those to serve the Lord. All right. So I want you to think about some of the very special talents and gifts that the Lord has blessed you with. And I also want you to ponder the question, are you actively using those talents and gifts to serve the Lord? All right, well, I'd like you to turn to page 707 in your literature book. I'm going to give you just a couple of minutes to find that page. Again, it is 707. We're going to go over some of the key elements before you get started in reading this folk tale. It is titled Master Frog. And maybe just by hearing the title, you can already think about some of the elements that could be involved in this story. So start making predictions in your mind as you're turning to page 707 in your literature book. All right, well, hopefully you have found the page. Now, what I want you to do on page 707 is look at the left column, and in the middle there it says Literary Focus, Motifs in Folktales, Metamorphosis. All right, a lot of big words there. So first of all, let's have a quick review about motifs. So you learned about those yesterday, and those should come back to your mind as being a feature that is repeated throughout a story. So an author, when they really want to get a certain point across, they will repeat those elements throughout the story to really capture the reader's attention. All right, and then think about that word metamorphosis. And maybe you are having some images of science class coming back to your mind about the metamorphosis of maybe a tadpole to a frog, or a metamorphosis of a cocoon to a beautiful butterfly. So basically, metamorphosis means a fantastic transformation from one shape to another. And as you look there in that section, the second column, let's just read this together. So it says, this story involves a metamorphosis, a fantastic transformation or change from one shape to another. Shape changes are common motifs in comics, myths, and fairy tales. In numerous folk tales, for example, a frog with bulging eyes turns into a handsome prince when someone loves him despite his ugly appearance. And in this story, a frog changes shape. However, the metamorphosis has an unusual twist. All right, and I have a special visitor today to kind of enhance our lesson. All right, so here he is, and we found him outside in our yard. I believe that he is actually a toad and not a frog, but I just wanted to share him with you, and maybe you are able to find some other signs of spring in your yard. Maybe you have seen some some birds' nests with eggs in them, and you have been able to observe those. But I just love frogs and toads, and I think that they are so cute. All right, well, he's just hopping away from the screen here. But and again, our story is going to be about how a frog turns into, poof, a handsome prince. All right, so here's our handsome prince. And I will put our frog away, whoops, in the bucket and then put him back out in the yard later. Okay, so let's go down to the next section there, reading skills, making predictions. When you're reading this story, it's really important to make predictions as you go, and it makes the reading of a text more interesting. So let's just read that section together. There are so many surprises in Master Frog that it is a good story to use for making predictions or guessing what will happen next. Remember when we read Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe, and some of you were really creeped out by that story, but the whole purpose of us reading that story in class was to make predictions. We were trying to determine in our minds what would happen next based on the clues that the author was giving us. Okay, or had given us. So looking at the top of the next column, before you read, follow these steps. I want you to do this as you're reading Master Frog. So first one, think about your prior experience with folktales. So think about some folktales that you know. Think about some of the elements that are usually involved in folktales. Okay. Next point, remember what you've learned about metamorphosis. So what is that again? It's an outstanding transformation that happens. All right, and then next we have preview the quotations on pages 708, 710, 713, and 714. Then write a sentence predicting what will happen in this story. You don't actually have to write a sentence, but I want you to really think about what will happen in this story. Write a new prediction before you begin each page. Okay, so let's look at our vocabulary words, and then we will look at that first quotation and make a prediction about that. All right, vocabulary. So our first word is admonished, which means warned or urged. The teacher admonished the other students to be more like Master Frog. All right, next we have entreaties, earnest requests. All his mother's entreaties couldn't change Master Frog's mind. All right, next we have charade, obvious pretense or act. The king got mad at Master Frog's proposal, which he thought was a charade. All right, next, presumptuous, too bold, arrogant. The king ordered the presumptuous frog out of his sight. And then we have coward, crouched and trembled in fear. When the tigers cowered, everyone cowered. I need glasses, it's true. When the tigers roared, everyone cowered in fear. Okay, now what I would like you to do is turn the page and let's make our first prediction. We already know that the title is Master Frog, and let's look at that quotation there. So it's in the green print. So except for his strange appearance, Master Frog was really quite an ordinary boy. All right, so I want you to make a prediction. What do you think this story is about? Okay. All right, now after you've done that, go ahead and begin reading. You're going to notice that there are those open book symbols. It's kind of in a like a beige or kind of like a light yellow shade, and there are some questions there. I want you to think through those questions. You don't have to actually write them down, but think through them as you read, because that will really help you with your comprehension of this text. And remember to make predictions about those quotations. All right, so let's just take a look again at our special guest that we had today. Look at this cute little frog. All right, guys, I hope that you're doing really well, and I hope that you're able to get outside and enjoy some other signs of spring, and maybe you can even catch a frog.